Hi friend, it's Matt Potratz back again. I didn't publish a thought last week as time simply didn't permit. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. Time did permit, but I considered the cost of doing so and decided it wasn't worth the cost. I had a completely packed agenda with my church planting project coming to a close and our debut Sundays happening last weekend, and it would have costed me time with my kids. It would have added weight and taken away that time with my boys and from my family who were visiting from out of town. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice either of those things. There was a point in my life when I wouldn't have considered the cost, and I would have written and recorded my thoughts regardless, only to discover later what the cost really was. That doesn't work in relationship, and it doesn't work in life as a whole. In the Bible, Jesus was speaking to a large crowd and even urged them to consider the cost of laying self down to become one of his followers. In the book of Luke, chapter 14, starting in verse 28, you'll read this. Read it for you. But don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin the construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there's enough money to finish it? Otherwise, you might complete only the foundation before running out of money, and then everyone would laugh at you. They would say, "There's a person who started a building and couldn't afford to finish it." Or, what king would go to war against another king without first sitting down with his counselors to discuss whether his army of 10,000 could defeat the 20,000 soldiers marching against him? Every decision we make, even if made for a gain, generally has a cost associated with it. And if we don't consider the cost, we might discover the costs when it's simply too late. We might feel confident going to battle with 10,000 soldiers. How could we ever lose? We have 10,000 armed and trained soldiers. But if we fail to consider that the enemy has 20,000 armed and trained soldiers, the battle will likely be a disaster. We must consider the cost and make a wise decision accordingly. There are countless areas of life where this topic applies, but the area I'd like to focus on this week is time. We've all likely heard it said, it was if time stood still. But reality is, time doesn't stand still. It moves, and when it's gone, it's gone. If we miss a moment or make a mistake, we can't stop time, and we can't hit rewind and try again. So when we're deciding where and how to spend our time, let's consider the cost of the decisions we make. When we consider the cost, time spent can be transformed into time invested. I say this because we will have taken the time to determine the best use of that time, and also to determine what areas will suffer from our decision. We might have to be willing to let one area suffer, say a work project, in order to invest in our son or daughter who stands in the line with disaster. Considering the cost poses the question, will I let my work project suffer, or is my child going to suffer? But if we don't consider the cost, we don't know the cost. Well, at least not until we learn the cost the hard way, as it's already in the process of costing us. If you're a parent or even a grandparent, I hope you join me in realizing how fast time truly does fly. Our decisions with our families all have a cost. They're costing someone or something. We have responsibility to make our absolute best investment in our kids before they leave our home. When you consider the cost, will it cost them or will it cost your job or hobbies? In that moment, your choice matters more than we can measure. This week, I encourage you, begin to consider the cost.